What is good, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Renegade Roundtable Podcast. I am Jeffrey Kirby. As you can see, we are running solo. It's going to be solo here for probably about a month or so, if not at least. Caleb, obviously, he's dealing with work and stuff, and he's going to be going back to college. So it's going to be me running for the next month or so. Maybe we'll try to get a guest in here or two. Or hell, if you guys are watching and maybe decide, hey, I would want to be on an episode of Renegade Roundtable, hit my DMs. We'll see. Well, maybe we can make that happen. But I do want to also say, give you guys a quick, not disclaimer, but, just let you guys know. Obviously, for those that were around last week, y'all could tell I was not in it. I was just sick as a dog. I was not feeling good at all. My energy level was probably about as low as it's ever been in my time here at Renegade Roundtable. But as you can tell, we are back, baby. We feel great. That was just a 1 week thing. We are back, and we are feeling great. And on top of that, this is probably going to be a very historic show in terms of, and I feel like we say this every week, and it's always based off of me because of the fact that, for everyone that knows, I've always just been a real big Pittsburgh Steelers fan. And now as I'm getting a little bit more into learning about hockey and learning more, paying attention more to the Pirates and stuff, get myself... Basically what I'm trying to say is this is probably going to be the most Penguins that I talk by myself in the history of this podcast. So if you're a big Penguins fan, be sure to definitely get in the conversation. We can talk because obviously we got some news that happened a couple nights ago with Evgeni Malkin returning, but we're not going to start off with that. We're obviously going to start off with something Steelers because something monumental happened with the Steelers as well, and that was obviously none other than the Heinz Field is now no longer. Heinz Field is now referred to as Acrisure Stadium. Acrisure Stadium. I can sure tell you, not a chance in hell am I calling it that. Acrisure. Acrisure. First and foremost, now, I'm not one of the... eventually, we're all going to have to get over it. We're eventually going to have to call it what its actual name is. We can't just sit here and be bitter and call it Heinz Field for the rest of our lives. I mean, well, hell, I will say, I guess we still live in Cleveland, or I still live in Cleveland, in the Cleveland area, and still people call Progressive Field Jacobs Field, so, there is that, but at the end of the day, to me, it sucks, because we all just love the way that Heinz Field sounded. Heinz Field just rolls off the tongue, it's easy to get to, and there's not all these many syllables. It's just easy, it rolls off the tongue, and it was just great. We had no issues with it. Acrisure does not roll off the tongue very well at all. It does the complete opposite. It's like trying to roll vegetables into my diet. Does not work out well. However, at the end of the day, we are going to eventually have to call it that because it is the new name, Acrisure Stadium. And now I know there was other things of hoping it could be Rooney Field at Acrisure Stadium or something like that. You'll see that sometimes with Kansas City. It's something stadium at Mile High, or no, that's at Denver, but then you still get something stadium at Arrowhead or whatever it was at Camden Yards for Baltimore for the Orioles. You do get that, but at the end of the day, it sucks. But and the other thing too is in terms of the money, in terms of looking at it from the contract standpoint. Obviously, if it wasn't going to work out, you're gonna have to find a new and nowadays. You're not going to just have Steeler Stadium or whatever it is, bring back Three Rivers. You're not going to have that anymore. It's always going to be, you're going to have some sort of corporate logo as the stadium because all that money that you could bring in extra. And that money that is brought in I think it was $57 million, if I'm not mistaken, over 15 years. So not 20 like how it was with Heinz, but it is that 15 years. I believe it's $57 million. If I'm not mistaken, it's $57 million. I've only been to Heinz Field technically twice. I'll be back there. Or I've been to Heinz Field / Acrisure Stadium twice. I've been there for Family Fest, and I was there for the Detroit Lions game last year. I'll be there again this year for the home opener. And hearing a bunch of fans who are season ticket holders or have been there a numerous of times say there needs to be some renovations. And that's exactly what you can use this kind of money for. Renovate the stadium, make it a more pleasant experience, maybe help work on the concourse, whether it's concessions, whatever it is. Make improvements maybe to the seats, whatever it is that needs to be improved. This would be the perfect time now to do it. Well, not timing legitimately, but now you have that extra revenue coming in. That would be something I would do if you're Art Rooney. Or if you're the Rooney family, because at the end of the day, that's what it's going to be all about. You got that extra money. Of course, you're going to want to try to renovate that as much as you can, because now we all know that stadium's going to be there for at least the next 15 years. So until at least the year 2037, Acrisure Stadium is still going to be there. Now, by that time, it might be time for a new stadium based on just how the timelines have been with stadiums. And when you look at some of the teams who got stadiums right around that time, I believe Tennessee is looking at possibly getting a new stadium. I know here in Cleveland, the Browns are First Energy Stadium's looking for a possible new stadium. So you're starting to get to that timeline of like where teams of other teams that built their stadium around the same time you did. That's going to be something to be interesting. And it's going to be more interesting to see how many more stadiums are built in between those next 15 years and to see maybe kind of how, I guess, quote-unquote, outdated Acrisure Stadium. See, I keep on just wanting to say Heinz Field. Got to get in the thought process of really just saying Acrisure Stadium. Acrisure Stadium. It sucks. We all just want to call it Heinz. And there might just be people who are bitter and petty and just say the hell with it. I'm still calling it Heinz Field regardless because fuck that. Now, again, there needs to be some sort of renovation. I'm going to be interested to see what happens with that. And this was something, and another thing too that is a thought process that I've been having that is interesting to think of. And again, I bring back here in Cleveland because there's the same issue here as well that you've been hearing about, because I hear about it all the time. I mean, I do live here. I get all the news and stuff like that. The fact that Pittsburgh, that the Rooney family does not own any parking lot outside of the stadium, I think that is something that's very intriguing, because I always think that if you can, no matter what it is, obviously when you're using the stadium, maybe 10 to 12, 13 times a year for the NFL, and then on whatever else venue you're going to be using. I know obviously in Pittsburgh, Kenny Chesney is very popular. If you're going to have any other concerts at Heinz Field, all that extra revenue just from all the parking and stuff, that is huge. And that could be extra, again, revenue to come in, because this is not like the Major League Baseball where you get this big deal and now it could go back into putting it into the players. That's not really how it works with the NFL. The NFL, it's going to be they're going to spend the money regardless, and it's not like, oh, you have a low payroll. We don't really talk about payroll when it comes to the NFL. That, in this case, it's just all that money that you're getting from whatever it is. For some stadiums, it is obviously they got you get the concessions and all that, but then you also get parking lot and all the money that you could bring in from that. That would be something that I think is very interesting to see what happens if they do bring in a new stadium. I think that is exactly what they would like to try to do, is get extra land and make that like an own area for them to make more be a monetary benefit for them. I other than that, honestly, I mean, I made a video on it a couple days ago, And obviously now we've had a couple nights to sleep on it and really think about it. Well, maybe some people haven't really thought about it because they've been thinking more about Evgeni Malkin, which we'll get to here in just a little bit. But, again, it's just, I mean, it is what it is. It is what it is. There's nothing we can do about it. We can't all just go out and, have pitchforks and whatever picket signs saying, have a peaceful protest about it. I mean, there's nothing we can do about it. It is what it is. However, I mean, you just got to deal with it. You got to do what you got to do. You got to move on. And I think the one thing that is interesting is finding a way to possibly keep those ketchup bottles up, because we're starting to get to the point now where, like, they're saying there's a chance it might happen. I think that would be cool if we're able to do that. If we were able to do that, that'd be great. However, I just don't know. And you guys can let me know down below. How do you guys feel about it? And also, I am tweeting something out real quick. That was my apologies. There we go. Perfect. It's just, at the end of the day, I would love to see it. Because here's the other thing, too, that was interesting. It's not like it was UMPC Stadium or it was like USS Steel Stadium, or whether it was the fact that Andrew Filipponi was the one that reported it, so some of us kind of was like, is this really true? I mean, blah, blah, blah. Not that it was really true, but it's just the fact that it came from him, because a lot of people think he's a complete asshat. However, he did get, not lucky, but he was in a good position to where he was able to put out that story, because all the big reporters are typically around this time, they go on vacation, and this was the perfect time for him to get that kind of scoop, and it was a great job by him on being able to get that kind of scoop, because now anything that was going on, you got that going for you. However, it sucks, but I mean, it is what it is. Honestly, I guess we just gotta live on and move on about it. Well, boys, ladies and gentlemen, we might be getting ready to get into some hockey here in a second, because, oh boy! Ooh. I just recently got into grape. I always shat on grape Powerade and grape drinks. I apologize. Grape Powerade is honestly very fire. But I think it's time. Let's get into some hockey here, boys, because, whoa, boy, we got ourselves some big news. Evgeni Malkin is back. He is back. 4 years, $24.4 million with an AAV of $6.1 million per year. Now, this deal happened on like the 11th hour of Tuesday night. I was sitting out on my front porch with my man Caleb. Shout out to Caleb. Not my co-host Caleb. I have two Calebs, actually. It's ironic. But I was sitting with my one of my co-worker Caleb. We were sitting out. I was doing my typical shenanigans, drinking on some whiskey and smoking on a cigar. And I saw that we got the news about Gino coming back, and I said, oh boy, now we got a reason to celebrate, ladies and gentlemen. But yeah, this happened on like the 11th hour of Tuesday going into Wednesday, which obviously would have been the beginning of free agency. And there was a lot of people that thought that if we would have got to the point of, we got to noon on Wednesday, and Evgeni Malkin wasn't signed, that he was going to be gone. Now, where would he have gone? That I'm not sure. That I don't know. We're not going to use that type of hypothetical now because we don't necessarily need to. But it was weird at how this whole thing worked out. Because according to Mike DeFabo, this deal had been on the table for over a week. Something had to have changed, because we were getting all kinds of reports saying he was frustrated with everything. He was going to he wanted to test the market, see what kind of deal he could get, and just see what could happen in the open market for himself. And we don't know what exactly changed. We don't know if something within the contract changed that made him change his mind. We don't know if he just had a change of heart. We don't know how much of an impact Sidney Crosby had on this. Because with Sidney Crosby, it seems like from what we've been hearing, he might have done something that we never see him do. And that's pull the superstar card out. He pulled out the superstar card and said, listen, we need this guy on this team. He makes us better. Him being a second line center, he's going to make us better. We need him on this team. He doesn't give a damn about nostalgia that some people are talking about and bitching about when they're saying they are not happy about this deal. But if you're going to, I don't think you want to necessarily disagree with Sidney Crosby, the second best player in the history of this franchise. One of the greatest of all time. First ballot Hall of Famer. I don't think you're going to disagree with Sidney Crosby on this. And if he feels like that, which obviously he should, look at what him and Malkin and Letang have done together. And we'll get into Letang here in a second again. But Malkin he makes that kind of impact on that second line. So you needed him to bring it back, because that was going to be a gaping hole in this roster. And to bring him back was great. That's exactly what we needed. And when you look at, and you can say, yes, he needs to stay healthy. That is very true. He did only play in 41 games last year. He had 42 points or something like that. And, we need him to stay healthy. That is true. But even if you could give two good years out of this contract, I think a lot of us will feel a whole lot better. Because I feel like right now a lot of people are thinking that it's just going to kind of go just down the ship real quick. I don't think that's going to be the case. And when you look, and we'll talk about here, here I'll give you the details on the contract here. So this year, the first year is a $4 million salary with a $4 million signing bonus. Year 2 is a $6 million salary. Year 3 is $5.6 million. And year 4, a $1 million salary with a $3.8 million signing bonus. Which, if you remember, is exactly the same way it is for Kris Letang. There's a reason for that. And for Letang, I believe it's year 5 and 6 of that deal. And you look at it, that year 4 also signifies that technically Sid would be a free agent at that time, because you got 3 years left on Sidney Crosby's deal. So, say, the band gets broken up, it is the final last dance, how it was with Michael Jordan and them, the true last dance, that final year, that year 3. And say that Malkin wants to retire, it's a whole lot easier to get out of that deal with just a $1 million salary, and that's why you bring out a $3.8 million signing bonus. That's exactly why you would do that. And the other thing, too, is I feel like at times people have tried to use his injuries, or his injury last year, like a scapegoat to what's been going on the last few years in terms of just in terms of the playoffs itself. Like last year, for an example, we were down Jari all the way up to Game 7. We lost Casey DeSmith in Game 1. So from the rest of Game 1 all the way on, you were down to your third string goalie in Louis Domingue, who signed which is ironic, he signed with the Rangers. So I guess that is the definition of, if you can't beat them, join them. Hopefully you can find some nice spicy pork and broccoli places somewhere in New York. But yeah, you're going up against, you have Louis Domingue, who was a journeyman goalie who had his moments, but in reality, when we needed him most, he played with the expectation that we thought he was going to be. He did not have a good save percentage. He did not play well at all, and it just did not work out well. And then on top of that, you're going up against just overall a red-hot Rangers team where you had Vincent Trocheck, who just signed a 7-year, $39 million deal to stay with the Rangers. You're going up against last year's Vezina Award winner Igor Shesterkin, where yes, we had him rattled at times, but again, there's a reason why he ended up being the Vezina winner. Great players, and crunch times, find ways to be great. And that is exactly what Igor Shesterkin did. So at the end of the day, it sucked that we did lose it, way that we did. And it didn't help that Jacob Trouba decided to go headhunting, took out Sidney Crosby, which again, as someone real quick, as a Cavs fan, this is exactly kind of like when Draymond Green got suspended for Game 5. He did something stupid in Game 4, but he got suspended in Game 5. That changed around the whole series. That's exactly what it felt like in this, except Trouba obviously did, except it was Sidney Crosby got hurt. He was out for Game 6, and it just changed everything. So, that's what sucked about that. And another thing, too, is when we talk about, obviously, the whole thing with Letang, or with Malkin, and just overall, we had this discussion a couple weeks ago, me and Caleb did, about who needed to be the priority between Kris Letang and Evgeni Malkin. And everyone seemed to have agreed that it needed to be Kris Letang. That ended up being the case, and you were able to get him done on that 6-year deal. And then you go out, you re-sign also Rickard Rakell, you also re-sign Brian Rust, so you sign a couple different players, and then you get to Malkin, where it's like, okay, is this really going to happen? Like, again, some people are questioning whether it was really going to happen. Now, obviously, it did. It's great. We don't have to worry about it anymore. He is a Penguin for life. Was like the NWO? For life. Life. That's great. And the other thing, too, I want to go back to this Letang deal. We discussed it a little bit last week. It was basically all of Caleb, because, again, I was feeling like a dead horse. It was bad. But I want to get into a little bit of the Letang deal. It's ironic how it's also a $6.1 million AAV for Letang as well. It's also ironic how they have these deals very similar, how similar it is set up. Because, obviously, some people are questioning, why would you give 6 years to a 35-year-old defenseman? Now, obviously, you wanted to get at least to 3 years, and then whatever else happens, honestly, we'll worry about it then. But then, obviously, like I mentioned before, the last 2 years, it makes it a whole lot easier, I believe, to get out of that deal based on having just the $1 million salary with a $3.8 million signing bonus, which, again, was very similar to how it was happened for Malkin. But here's what's interesting as well, when we look at Kris Letang. Kris Letang is 38th in all of the NHL right now in AAV for defensemen. That is why I think you needed to spread this deal out a little bit more. You pay your guys what they deserve. As like this could be their last contract for the most part, and it's not only just like a thank you, but it's we're taking care of you, because this easily could have been a 4x7 or even a 4x8 for Letang with the way that these deals are going. Because a lot of people are saying if you could get Letang for under 8. That's great. We got it for 6.1, which was phenomenal. But you could have easily had it to where it got a 4x7 or a 4x8 if you wanted to do just like a 4-year deal. And now that puts you even more in a pinch. And then if that's the case, we don't know if you're able to bring back Evgeni Malkin. We don't know. It's just how that works. And with those last 3 years, if you're going to be bad, who cares? I mean, at that point, you're not going to be necessarily worried about money. You're just not going to worry about it. It is what it is. And then it was weird, too, because it was weird that you get Rickard Rakell re-signed on it was a 6x5. 6 years, $5 million AAV. I think a lot of people are a little bit surprised about that. Not necessarily about the money, but the years. It was weird to see them give Rickard Rakell 6 years. It was kind of weird about that. But, I mean, there wasn't really a market as well for wingers. So, at the end of the day, you bring back your guys, and It's not necessarily fully running it back, but I guess you are kind of running it back and seeing what happens. And then you bring in POJ. So obviously now you're gonna on a one-way deal. So now you're thinking, okay, one of these defensemen is gonna have to go. Who is that going to be? Is it going to be Brian Dumoulin? Is it going to be Marcus Pettersson? Is it going to be Mike Matheson? I mean, Dumoulin is kind of diminishing. But again, his value from other teams could be higher just based on what he's been able to do with this team. And then you get Pettersson. He gives you 3 years of term, and he's still young. Matheson, on the other hand, although you would like to probably maybe ship him out, I think that contract is just... It's Jason Zucker-like. It's Jeff Carter-like. If not, maybe a little bit harder to get off of. So, if you're able to get off of him, that's great. Whether you got to maybe take... Because you only... And then here's the thing with... let me take a look at this. If I'm not mistaken here, let me take a look at this. I should have had this ready to go, but I don't. I apologize for that. Let me get the SPO track here. Okay, so Mike Matheson, yeah, you have 4 years left on that deal. So you have this year, obviously, and it goes all the way down to he'll be a free agent in the 2026-2027 season. So you have about 4 years of that. For right now, he's 28. I mean, if there is someone that would want him, great. I just don't think it might end up happening. I think there's some people that will probably say Dumoulin would be the guy that they would want out. Here, let me take a look here and see what all... give me a second here. Blah, 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 blah. Let me see what Caleb said. Who did he say he would want gone? Because we were talking about... He prefers Pettersson. He would prefer having Pettersson gone, where he's a guy that, you could probably you could get some good trade value because he's young, and you still have 3 years left on that deal, so you have a good amount of control on him. So those are some factors that you're looking into when it comes to the defenseman, because then on top of that, you also brought in Letang as well. So, I mean, it is what it is, honestly. I'm going to be very interested to see, and I know there are others that are going to be interested to see what happens as well, just overall with this team. And who else are you going to add into this as well? I mean, now in terms of free agencies, I don't know. That would be more of like a Caleb thing. I have zero damn clue on any type of the free agents. In fact, I'm surprised I'm able to talk this much when it comes to the Penguins. But yeah, I think as well. And the other thing too, and here's what's weird about Dumoulin for a second. Dumoulin, like I said, he's diminishing probably as a player, but he brings the trade value based on the fact that other teams might value what he can do based on his resume and based on what he's been able to win. But the issue with that is I think Letang, he likes to play with him on that first line. So you don't want to mess up with that duo with Letang and Dumoulin, so you're kind of in this weird situation. And then it's like, okay, where does POJ fit into this? Because obviously POJ is going to end up having to replace one of these guys. So it's a whole messed up situation. We don't know exactly how this is going to go. And we'll all be very curious to see what happens. And other than that, that's all I really have when it comes to the Penguins. There was one thing too. Raquel talked to the press today, and he said that Raquel was on play with Malkin next year. I think for the two of us, we can find some more chemistry, or if we can find some more chemistry and get some more time in training camp and get to know each other a little bit better, I think that would really help. Or that I think we can be really, really good, which is true. I mean, again, the more chemistry you get, the better, and that's all you could really say. The more chemistry you can have, the better, especially when it comes to hockey. All right, I digress to that, and we'll move on to the Pittsburgh Pirates. Because we have some good news and we have some bad news. David Bednar is an all-star. Congratulations. You won yourself some icy mangoes, icy lay mangoes. Great. Congratulations to you. You deserve it 100%. And going into David Bednar a little bit, obviously, 12th in baseball with 16 saves, 6th in the NL in saves with 16, obviously, 2.95 ERA, 56 Ks and 42 and 2/3 innings. And it's nice to see that out of David Bednar. We all love to see it. But obviously then that brings in the question of, do you trade David Bednar? Which obviously when it comes to teams like the Pirates, you're going to get that. Anytime a player is playing really good, you say, great, now we could possibly trade him. We just had this discussion last week with David Bednar and also Jose Quintana. We just had this discussion. David Bednar has 4.5 years left to control. He's not even into arbitration yet. Unless you just get the most ridiculous haul ever, which I don't think is going to happen, you keep David Bednar. You keep him put. You enjoy him. He's going to continue to get saves for you, and he's going to be a good part. He'll be around right when we get to the beginning part of where we might be thinking playoffs. Then you'll have to worry about that then, but right now, let's enjoy him as much as we can. Obviously, we got into Bryan Reynolds a little bit, a.k.a. Caleb. He's out with an oblique injury, or with an oblique strain, and they're going to reassess everything. He hasn't gotten into any baseball activity, so they'll reassess after the break. Now, when we get into oblique injuries when it comes to Bryan Reynolds, we got to be very careful with this. They can be very tricky. If you don't handle this right, or depending on the severity of this injury, you very well, we may not see him again this year. And I know that sounds asinine to some, but it's a very well possibility. We're halfway into July. You only got 2.5 months of the season, which, damn, we are flying by. My God. We're only 2.5 months, until the season's over. Depending on how the severity is, that might just end up being the case. Do I personally think that's the case? No, not necessarily. But it's always a possibility. I mean, we'll have to see. Let's just hope that he'll be out there again here shortly. But we also don't want to risk any more kind of injury or risk any further damage happening anyway. And again, this might also tear off some of the trade rumors of Bryan Reynolds at the beginning, which apparently, according to reports, Ben Cherington has already turned out multiple offers for him. Which I had a conversation with my friend Hunter last week about Bryan Reynolds, and obviously he's a Guardian fan because he was like, "Oh yeah, we'd love to bring him in. Of course you would." But at the end of the day, you're going to have to bring in probably 2 to 3 top 100 prospects to start a conversation. And the other thing, too, is I've seen a lot of Yankee fans, of course, saying, oh, we would love to have him because of course you would, because you guys want just absolutely everyone, because, again, you guys are a bunch of arrogant assholes. Here's the infamous clip from Frick. Jared, I am on your ass. Clip that. Back to our regularly scheduled programming. But yeah, just when it comes to Bryan Reynolds, we're just gonna have to see what happens with his injury. I think this kills off a lot of the trade talk. There might still be a team that would want to try to trade for him, depending on the severity of the injury. But I just don't see it happening before the deadline this year. I just don't see it happening. One thing I do want to discuss real quick, that a lot of people were shitting on, that some people may not either realize or maybe are starting to regret a little bit, And it was the fact of Kevin Newman coming back. Because when you look at a lot of the fan stuff that I got, in fact, let me refine this again. I didn't expect to actually talk about this, but here we are. I'm going to bring this back up here. I want to find some of the tweets that I saw. Okay, here we go. Let me find this. Okay, here we go. So this was from the tweet from when they reinstated Kevin Newman from the 60-day IL. We had someone tweet out saying they had no problem with it. He said, I have no problem with Bly getting consistent at-bats at AAA, getting back after the deadline. Oh, wait, no, this was referring to... that was referring to Bly Madrid. And then you get this guy, he was like, no, Ben Cherington just wants to play dog shit players because he literally wants to lose this year. Bum-ass GM. Blah, blah, blah. The thing is with this team, and then you had anyone else enjoying this fun young team, referring, again, probably to Kevin Newman. But here's the thing. Kevin Newman was a guy that you put him out here, get him you could get him some extra playing time. This is almost like an audition for a trade. For a team to say, hey, look at who we have here. Come trade for him. And that's exactly what the Pirates team, what very well could be trying to happen. And when you look at it, since he's come back, Kevin Newman's hitting .333. He's playing good second base. So it's all about an audition for the trade deadline. So at the end of the day, I wasn't mad at it. Because at the end of the day, you could continue to bring those guys back up if so needed. So, I mean, people need to realize, sometimes people need to think a little bit more with their head and not their heart. Because some people, when it comes to fandom, just doesn't work out well. And then obviously it's cool. You get Jake Marisnick. He's come back. He's had 2 home runs and a few RBI since coming back in like the 4 games he's been back. That's been nice to see. O'Neal Cruz, he's got his batting average back up over 200, and we all still see the laser that he has at shortstop. So that's nice to see. And then obviously Mitch Keller. Let's give a quick clap to Mitch Keller. His last outing against Miami, 7 innings pitched, which, if I'm not mistaken, is a career high. He had a 5-hit, 1-earned, 5K performance in there, so that's a good performance for Mitch Keller. We like to see that. If you could get a little bit more out of that from him, now you could be onto something. And then on top of that, you got a series coming up against Colorado. You split the series against Miami, which, again, we have not lost a series in the month of July. We have not lost a series in the month of July. And that is continuing. And you can very well continue that trend because you have a weekend series with the Colorado Rockies. The Rockies aren't that good. They're 40-49, if I'm not mistaken. Go take a couple games out in Colorado. Go use some of that thin air and high up in the air, in the altitudes. Go smack some balls around. Put them over the fence. Let's do this. You can damn well do it. I don't see why they couldn't, honestly. I mean, it'll be very interesting to see what happens. We look and see what the pitching matchups are going to be for the weekend here for the Pirates. Blah 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 blah. Stand by. Okay, so Friday. You get Jose Quintana. Saturday you get Mitch Keller, and then on Sunday is undecided. So we will see what happens for the Pirates. Maybe that's a bullpen game. And god damn it, Caleb, what's up? How you doing? How's work? Which, by the way, as soon as I get done here, I might have to call you because I gotta get off. Last night was complete hell, so I'll be calling you after this show. So call me maybe, whatever that song was. That's exactly what will be happening. But, till then, I think we're going to get off a little bit early. I hope you guys did enjoy. And if you guys did, smash that like button, hit the rest subscribe button. We're 15 subscribers away from the big 500. So I hope you guys do click that red subscribe button. That would be fantastic. And until then, I'll see you guys in the next video or the next live stream. Whatever happens next is what happens next. Stay safe. Hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. And peace out. Don't piss people off, by the way. Except your coworkers. Piss off your coworkers sometimes. It's great. But peace out.